This is something that's been on my spectral radar for quite a while, though I had never found the appropriate time to actually discuss it. Until now. I'm well aware that my series is called Sequels That Underwhelmed, and what I'm talking about today is technically not really a sequel but a remake. Unfortunately, I'm going to be forced to bend my rules and actually include this there because in many ways a sequel is what a lot of people were expecting and actually would have preferred, including myself. First, a little backstory. The game in discussion is called Conker's Bad Fur Day and was released by Rareware, a company that had made quite a few other platformers including Banjo-Kazooie, kid-friendly stuff. But in around 2001 they released Conker's Bad Fur Day, which at a glance would appear to be in the same boat as Banjo-Kazooie, what with, farm animals, cute and cuddly, lighthearted platforming. That was only surface deep, though. Take one extended look at the game, and it's filled to the brim with profanity, grotesque violence, shameless sexuality. Pretty much everything in that game is designed to shock the hell out of you. Like, imagine a scenario where you're traversing a mountain that is composed entirely of feces that's run by dung beetles with British accents, and you're attacked by a fecal monster who has corn for teeth and attacks you with balls of fecal matter, who serenades you with opera the whole time, and you defeat him by throwing giant-sized rolls of toilet paper into his mouth and then flush him. Trust me, I couldn't make this kind of stuff up if I tried. Now, on a purely technical level, Conker's Bad Fur Day was brilliant. The graphics were very detailed by N64 standards, probably some of the best now that I think of it. And the cartridge itself included tons of voice acting, which was unbelievable at the time. I'm still not really sure how they managed to cram all that in there. Add to that a very well done soundtrack, and on a purely technical level, Conker's Bad Fur Day was brilliant. And in terms of gameplay, it was more brains over brawn, as you did have a basic melee attack, but it was mostly useless for the large portion of the game, and you usually had to run around enemies and find weaknesses in them, or use the environment or whatever other methods to accomplish goals. The only real problem I ever had with the game was the camera was sometimes an issue, as well as the difficulty level was kind of steep, which I would assume was put there to scare off kids from getting too far into the game. I can only speculate, however. Now, despite how good the game was, it unfortunately had the bad timing of being released around the same time as the N64 was about to be retired and the GameCube was about to be released, so it didn't have a very long tour of duty. Now, a couple of years later, I began hearing reports of another Conker game being made on Xbox. It was supposed to be called Conker Live and Reloaded. Unfortunately, I found this game was going to be a remake and not a sequel. However, it wasn't released around the time I expected, and I think it actually got delayed and went dark for a while, and it resurfaced under the name Conker Live and Reloaded. I was not really sure as to why that was until I actually got my hands on the game. The original meaning of the uncut from Conker Live and Uncut was meant to imply that the censorship from the N64 version was going to be fully removed. Now that the game was titled Reloaded instead of Uncut, I was loath to discover that not only was there still censorship in the game, it was even more than there was in the N64 version, which still to this day makes no sense to me. We're talking about the Xbox, a console with no shortage of M-rated games, probably more than the PlayStation 2, including games like Grand Theft Auto, so I don't really understand how Conker Live and Reloaded would have ruffled any feathers. Or at least no more than the N64 version did. But anyway, what was the big problem with this game that really bothered me to the point that I felt like making a video talking about this? It's just that they do absolutely nothing with this. Worse than that, all they basically did was port over the exact same single player, and the only thing they managed to do was add a melee weapon that you could sheath and unsheath. Oh, and by the way, they dropped tons of enemies in your way that were never a part of the original game and put there pretty much just so you have something to hit. It really makes no sense that they're even there, so it's kind of pointless. Add to that they didn't even bother to fix the one or two problems that the original game had, like, occasional bad camera angles. It's almost like they spent all this time detailing the graphics of the single player, which look amazing, I will give them credit, and the soundtrack, given the proper upgrade, now also sounds even more awesome. So yes, that's fine. But you know what? The single player was only there to sell the multiplayer. That's it. Yes, in one of the later chapters of Conker's Bad Fur Day, there is a scene of war in chapter, I forget what chapter it was, but it's got evil teddy bears going against the gray squirrels and in a parody of the Saving Private Ryan scene, and then later the future setting of the Terminator films. They marketed this game exclusively around the multiplayer, just using the recognizable Conker character to sell the whole damn thing. You could just as easily have stripped out the single player and put this game by itself, and, you know, it could have been like a title in the Conker series. It didn't have to be a remake. I'm just baffled at the need of a remake if you're not only going to not do anything new with it, you're going to censor it even more, and you're not even going to bother fixing the problems that were there in the first place. Oh, and the multiplayer itself? What do I think about that? Well, I have played it, and I have to say that it's pretty average. There's nothing really good or bad about it. It works for the most part. Capture the flag, team deathmatch, stuff like that. It's functional. It can get frenzied and chaotic to where you won't really know what's going on. Sometimes you'll die and won't really even have, a clue as to how it happened. I guess that's no different than other games. But it's just not all that interesting. It's okay for like maybe 30 minutes or so, but once again, the disappointing part about this is just that it's a Conker game and they did nothing with it, and there is potential to either do a sequel or tell a different story, and instead we get the same single player from 2001, heavily censored even more so, and then no improvements to gameplay and even things thrown in there that don't even need to be there, like this crappy baseball bat melee weapon and random enemies for no reason. The original game is, I guess you could say, a guilty pleasure of mine. And I was just sort of disappointed that they really just dropped the ball here and didn't really capitalize on what they had to work with, and that is going to be the end of this whole series. There's really nothing more to say about it. I mean, that's been years ago. I'm pretty sure it's dead now. But anyway, that's really all I have to say on that, so stay tuned for the next one. I promise the game coming up next is going to be very familiar to anyone who's been paying attention to my channel for any extended period of time. See you then.
When God is gone and the devil takes hold, who have mercy on your soul. Satisfies me but your